Hi everyone, this week it's all about the Klipschorn. Stick around. Hi everyone, I'm Scott Schneider. This is Stereo Niche. Well, this week, a legendary speaker, the Klipschorn. Klipschorn is legendary because it's been around over 60 years. It's been in constant manufacture. Paul Klipsch released the Klipschorn in 1948. That's pretty hard to believe. And it's, relatively unchanged. Same three-way configuration, a 1-inch horn, a 2-inch horn driver, and then a bass bin with a folded horn design, a folded woofer here in the bass bin. And it's phenomenal. It has a 105 decibel sensitivity, which is pretty amazing. Back in the 1940s and 50s, everything was tube amplification, so you didn't have a lot of power, to deal with, and so they had to figure out a way to make a very efficient speaker, and boy, did they ever! At 105 watts, that's pretty amazing. These are a lowly 89, so that's a pretty drastic difference. Such a difference that I've decided to do two reviews. Essentially one like I normally do, using the same amplification. By the way, that reminds me, I've swapped out the amp. My new standardized amp here for testing will be a Macintosh amp. Everything else stays the same. I will denote that, by the way, which I've remiss in doing that before, so that everyone knows what I'm running here for my reviews. So I'm going to do one review with this configuration, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to set up the Klipschorns with some tube amplification and listen to them that way, and give you my thoughts on that as well. This particular set, I picked them up some years ago, came with a larger collection, but what I wanted, in addition to the wheels that the prior owner put on, they also upgraded some of the componentry with Kreitz components. Kreitz is a third-party manufacturer of Klipsch components. You can upgrade tweeters and mid-ranges and capacitors, and they've done all that with these. So they do have Kreitz components, so I want to mention that up front. I don't have the original components, so I can only compare what I have in place here. So just a heads up that this particular set has Kreitz upgrades in it. I think that's pretty much it for this particular set. I'm going to show you now what they look like. You get to see what some of the internals look like because you have visibility into the backside here. So you'll get to see what the horn and mid-range look like as well as the crossover. The woofer is encased inside the bass bin here, so can't easily see that. But there are diagrams out there that you can access to see what that folded horn, folded woofer design looks. I think that's it. So I will show you those up close, and then I'll come back and tell you guys what I think about them. Well, all right. Well, let's talk about the review. Okay, before we get started, like I always do, wanted to run through some of the basics. So for the Klipschorn, again, manufactured starting in 1948, right after World War II, up to present, still manufactured. The Advent, this particular set, manufactured around 1978. The MSRP for the Klipschorn around $1,800 a pair. Advents, around $300 to $350 roughly. A fifth of what the Klipschorns cost. So pretty significant difference. Impedance 8 ohms each. Sensitivity, this is where they differ. 105 decibel sensitivity for the Klipschorn and 89 for the Advent. That's a pretty drastic difference. And configuration, Advent 2-way. Klipschorn is a three-way folded horn design. Okay, let's jump into style. Well, there's a pretty dramatic style difference here, right? So Klipschorn is a very large speaker, and it's also designed to go into a corner. So not the most accommodating, right? So and it also looks a little dated, not exactly changed over its lifespan. So for the compared to the Advent, especially this particular model, easier to accommodate. It is still a fairly decent sized speaker, kind of heavy, but you can certainly put it in lots of different places, accommodate lots of spaces. Not so with the Klipschorn. So I ended up giving it a 10 versus the Advent of a 13. So most significant difference so far. On to the imaging and soundstage. Now, before I get into the Klipschorn, I want to talk about the Advent. So the Advent, being my baseline, I reviewed it first. It was the first speaker I reviewed, and I reviewed it by itself. And when I did the imaging and soundstage, I didn't have a reference point. And I love the way they sound. I love the soundstage for them. However, the soundstage itself on the Advent is very narrow. It's not a very big soundstage. And so as I kept listening and comparing it to other speakers, I realized that while they image well, their soundstage is very narrow. So so the point is, I think I overrated them. And I've changed the rating from a 15 down to a 13. So after I do the Klipschorn, at some point I'm going to do a summary of all of my reviews, and I'll review all of them and recalculate all the ratings for all the speakers to make sure all of them are the same rating now. I'll also go back and denote that in the comments of all the prior speaker ratings. So just needed to reset that. It was something that was sort of bothering me once I became, sort of realized it. So I wanted to start that here, set the record straight, if you will, and then have my scoring consistent ongoing. So that's the Advent. Now on to the Klipsch. What I wrote here for the imaging and soundstage, I literally wrote effortless, huge soundstage, concert-like realism. And that is where they really differ from almost all speakers. So they have this ability to make every track you listen to sound like it's live. That's the magic of the Klipschorn. And probably not something that I think we all think about going in, but they're an imposing speaker, but do they throw out a soundstage. It's just, this wide, open-aired soundstage, very airy, and it just, because they're so sensitive, it sounds it's effortless. You just kind of turn that knob just a little bit on the volume, and it just everything is awake in the room, and it becomes alive. These sound very small compared to what the Klipschorns sound like. When my personal stereotype of Klipschorns were that they were classical music. Not at all. They can do anything. There's no genre that they don't benefit, or I would say there's not a genre that wouldn't benefit from being played on the Klipschorns. Every soundtrack that I played made you want to tap your toes, sing the song with them. You felt like you were, hearing a live track, to be honest. That was the difference that I was experiencing. So the one thing though that is, was not there that some speakers have, and that's this pinpoint imaging quality. you know, feeling like an instrument is right here and right here. The voicing is centered, and the voicing is very fun. You know, songs, singers do sound like they're right here in front of you, which is a quality other speakers have, but they do it much better. They sound, it really does sound like they're live. That's the feeling. You almost have, you know, some tracks, if you really like it, you know, your hair on your arm can almost stand up. It's sort of that sense of realism. But what it's lacking, though, is that pinpoint accuracy. So that's a little bit of a caveat there. But on the scoring side, I give them a 16 compared to the Advent of a 13. So very good, very fun. That's why I kept listening. And by the way, this CD here, this Lost Boys CD, I sort of rediscovered it in my collection again. Used to listen to it all the time. It has a lot of great tracks on it. And a lot of them I just kept hitting, you know, replay, just so I could hear it again on the Klipschorn because it's so much fun. Okay, on to the lows. Well, you know, as I mentioned, this is where the lack of the proper room comes into play. They're a corner speaker, and they're in the corner because that's going to enhance and, you know, help beef up the bottom end. And missing a whole section of the wall here, you know, takes a toll on it. So that hurt them because I don't have them positioned the right way. So while it wasn't completely gone, I am aware that if I could set them up the right way, probably would get a couple more points. So as they are now, and as I position them, which by the way, I think is how most people will have to do it. I don't think most homes, at least, you know, fairly new, will be able to set them up in a corner. It's going to be pretty hard to do, I think, for a lot of people, unless you build in this false wall. But do that, and I think you will, you know, do it. But I think, honestly, this is how most people will set them up. So in this configuration, not properly set up, I still gave them 15, which is better than the Advent. So it's not like the bass is non-existent. It's there. It's just not hitting what I think it's rated at 35 hertz, then I don't think I was feeling 35. But still, it was still pleasant for me. I still enjoyed it. I'm not, again, one of these people that likes a heavy thumping bass. But if you do, you know, you'll certainly want to, you know, close in that backside. In fact, some people actually do just build a frame around it. That helps. So, all right. So the lows, 15 on the Klipschorn, 14 on the Advent. Moving to mids. This is probably where I got most excited. Again, feeling like you're in a concert. There's nothing better than feeling like you're in a concert if you're listening to a good singer. That's when you really mostly appreciate it, I think. Now, you know, of course, I'm not a classical music listener, but I'm sure that certainly makes it more exciting. If it feels like you're in front of the orchestra, I would get it. But for me, a good singer, and that singer right there, and, you know, feeling like their spittle is coming off of me, that's the best thing ever. And having that sort of sensation on all tracks and not just live tracks, that's exciting stuff. You know, I really enjoyed it. Again, I kept hitting replay on several songs just because I liked that sensation. So for the mids, I gave them a 17, and I gave the Advents a 16. Now the Advents do a very good job at it, and I gave but I did give the Klipschorns just a point higher. But again, part of that excitement is the soundstage. That's the aspect that really makes it exciting. Okay, on to the highs. You know, this is something that I sort of realized it, and then I thought, well, maybe it's because of the Kreitz upgrade. So I wrote on here. Now, so my expectation for horns, typically, and part of this was my review of the Heresy, is that I don't really, you know, rave about the tweeter. Now the tweeter and the Heresy was fine. It wasn't, you know, fatiguing, but it did seem to borderline, you know, where it wasn't so pleasant sometimes. But on this one, I wrote unhornishly pleasant. That's not a real word, but that's what I thought of. So it was very smooth, and I don't know again if that's the Kreitz tweeter that's so different. And is it, you know, is that the difference between, you know, is the original harsh? I don't know because I don't have it, but I found it to be very smooth, very enjoyable. every aspect of both mid-range and horn tweeter. I loved it, actually. And again, kept listening to tracks over and over again. So if you guys, unfortunately I did not upgrade these. It came this way. So if you've gone through an upgrade and have the original, compared them, please put some comments in. I'd love to know your feedback. So I gave the Klipschorns a 17 on the highs, and the Advents get a 16. So totaling everything up with the new high score of the Advents get a 72 now, and the Klipschorn got a 75. So it may not sound like a lot, but if you were to separate the style, because it took a big hit on the style, and just looked at the audible aspects of the rating here, that's a 6-point difference, and that's significant. So I think if you have the room and can accommodate a speaker of this size, you've got nothing but exciting listening that's going to happen here. Now, again, some folks will need to comment on the Kreitz upgrades. They are here, so I can only say that they do sound pleasant to me. Whether that's dramatically different from the originals, unfortunately, I don't know. But I can tell you that every track I listened to was really fun. Tapping my toes, singing along with it. It's really pretty remarkable. And again, effortless is the word I would use because of that sensitivity. So that's it for that. I'm going to set them up, of course, on some tube amplification this week. Maybe it'll get even better. Stick around this week, and we'll find out. But that's it for this review. I'll let you guys know, of course, when I get that one ready. And if you want to make sure you get awareness of that, hit subscribe. And if you want to get notified, hit that bell. And as always, thank you guys so much for not just tuning in, but the great comments, lots of good dialogue. Keep that up, and we'll see you next time.